Hi, and welcome to the commonsku Supplier Spotlight, where we give our distributors the opportunity to learn a bit more about one of our commonsku supplier partners. This month, I have the pleasure of chatting with Kathy Cheng, president of Redwood Classics Apparel. Kathy and her team of makers at Redwood have done an amazing job of crafting this boutique apparel company that functions both in the retail world as well as with promotional products distributors. They do everything from custom sourcing to cut and sew to private labeling to print, and they've worked on some amazing projects with distributors in our industry. Their programs in diversity and environmental responsibility are second to none, and Kathy and I could have talked for hours about those programs alone. But tune in and listen to Kathy talk about where Redwood came from and what they're doing today in the industry and beyond. All right, thanks everybody for joining us for this month's Supplier Spotlight. We have Kathy Cheng, president of Redwood Classics Apparel, with us this month. Kathy, how are you doing?
I'm great, David. Thank you so much for having me.
Happy New Year. So good to have you here with us and love
Thank
having you
you.
guys as part of the community. In fact, I've got my lovely Redwood shirt on today from
Yay!
UCamp Pittsburgh, I believe this was from, right?
Yes,
My
yes,
first
yes,
all over print t-shirt. I think I'm
yes.
rocking it. This series is kind of for our distributors to get to know our supplier partners a bit. And you guys are a very unique apparel company when it comes to our community. So, and there's a really rich story about multiple generations involved in the company. Could you try again? Wow, Siri's talking to me here. Just so
I'm sure
tell us a
Alexa
little
will talk
bit
to me soon.
about Redwood and how you guys came to be, how the company got started, and how you got involved, and how you ultimately wound up in the crazy promo side of the
Promo.
apparel industry.
Yeah, so the factory that owns and operates Redwood Classics is by the name of WS and Company. And so sometimes people will say, like, what do you do? And really, Redwood Classics started in the promo industry, I would say in 2010 as a factory. It's kind of a Cinderella immigrant story, I guess you could say. I came to Canada at a young age of 4, and my parents, came with nothing as well. And my dad used to work 3 jobs. And, in 1988, him and his brother and sister decided to open up a small contracting company, sewing facility. And we started off with 5 people and 10 machines. And this is in 1988. And
Wow.
then next thing you know it, by the late 90s, my father, under his leadership, and his brother and sister had scaled the business to directly employing close to 500 people. Everything was local. We had over 200,000 square feet, and we became like a real full service apparel manufacturer where we had a knitting mill, cut and sew facility. We had embroideries. We had like 96 heads. We had like 4 or 5 automatic screen printing machines. And so from end to end solutions provider as an apparel manufacturer. But then in 2001, as we know, China joined WTO, quota started to get lifted, and the sourcing became more and more price sensitive. And
Sure.
by that time, my aunt and uncle had retired from the business in the early 2000s as well. And then move forward to 2008, which was the last global recession, in which the marketplace honestly just was not able to sustain the infrastructure and the scale that we had grown to, because it was also in the height of fast fashion. So when you're competing cents to a dollar in labor, it becomes very, very challenging. And so at that point, we were left with a family decision. Do we retire like most textile families have? Or do we just, keep fighting this battle? And my dad asked me to be his business partner. By that time, our factory, we were down to about 100, 150 people. And then when he asked me at the end of 2008, I initially didn't want to, but I realized, it really was this factory and our makers that has given our family this amazing new life when we came to Canada. And through that process, we also onboarded a number of new immigrants as well to, really put their roots in North America. So I said yes. I became my dad's business partner in 2009, and we humbly restructured with 40 people. And so that was 11 years ago. And I'm happy to share that fast forward 11 years, and we've definitely tripled. We've tripled our workspace. We've moved into new facilities, in addition to acquiring other facilities. And then we've also expanded our value chain in terms of products and services that we can offer. And we're almost triple our headcount as well. So we've been growing. But part of, I think, doing that is because we diversified the portfolio. The factory itself, we still do a lot of private label programs and custom programs for a number of global retailer designer brands, as well as global corporate brands through our exclusive network of resellers, such as the Right Sleeve of the World. And we still continue to do that. And I would say I was a jack of all trades and master of none. And, basically it was an upstart again. And I was answering calls all day long. And we would get end users that would call and say, I got this sweatshirt. I absolutely love it. And we always had a blanks program from the factory, but we never had our own brand. And so, funny enough, I actually met Mark in our other business before we were Redwood Classics. And Mark and Right Sleeve used to, buy from our blanks program, and we would actually put their label, Right Sleeve label, onto it. So they took advantage of the white label program. When we restructured, I started getting these calls, and I'd be like, okay, well, it may not be for everybody, but there is a very niche market out there that's looking for quality and the country of origin. Because you got to understand, when we launched Redwood Classics, it was in the middle and the height of fast fashion. People didn't care where the products were coming from. They didn't care about the quality. It was, what can I get the most and the cheapest at the quickest rate, which is complete opposite of what Redwood Classic stands for, which is more slow fashion as opposed to fast fashion. With that, in between all of that, I also then became closer to an old friend of the factory and who's become a mentor, Wally Richards from KC Caps. And he introduced to me this thing called a promo market.
Crazy promo market.
Yeah. I was like, really? Like, I really didn't understand what Right Sleeve did, other than, okay, we sold them blanks and we put their label onto it. So I started connecting the dots and realized, hey, wait a second, there's a real niche in this marketplace. Because I would hear, I'd go to events, or I would kind of pay attention, and people would say, oh, I'm selling retail brands. And then I would take a look at the product, touch and feel, and I went, okay, they're retail brands, but I'm going to challenge and ask you to find the same quality that was reflected in the retail marketplace of this brand. And I just realized that there was this kind of a disconnect. So I thought, okay, could Redwood Classics come in and really focus on the country of origin? So, responsible and ethical sourcing, also high quality, which is because the factory that owns and operates Redwood Classics manufactures for all these global and retail designer brands. We understood that already, right? We felt like we were really making what we call retail brands, because you would see our products in high-end retailers. So I just thought, you know what, let's give it a try. And I joined PPPC at that point and came to market. And I'd say everything in this lookbook is made in Canada. And I would go to trade shows and people would look at me like I was crazy, because they'd look at me like I was an alien with three heads, because they'd be like, what? So this is made in Canada? I'd be like, yeah, the entire book, every piece that comes out of the Redwood Classics line is made in Canada. And they just didn't believe it. And I think part of the reason why we were a differentiator is because we are the actual manufacturer and the distributor to the reseller network. We're not a large scale reseller that is buying products from different factories and then stocking it and then reselling it.
The story is fascinating, and we are glad that you did not retire, that you decided to turn things around and kind of go in a new direction. And I agree, the quality of the stuff you guys are doing is amazing. I have some of your retail pieces, but I have some of your custom pieces too, like the shirt you guys did for SKU Camp. And you talked a little bit about kind of the breadth of the services you provide and focusing on the viewers and the distributors in the community that are watching this. Can you encapsulate a little bit in terms of, if I'm a distributor in the promotional products industry, what is something that sets you guys apart, or services, why I would look at doing this over and above what I've typically been doing, ordering blanks, sending them to my local decorator?
I would say because as a one-stop shop supplier, you are now able to have access to custom manufacturing, to a blanks program. It's all streamlined, so it's easy. What makes Redwood Classics unique above and beyond the quality. It's also what the brand represents. Sustainability, I know is a word that gets thrown a lot, quite a bit. I always say, I think every organization, every brand needs to define what sustainability means to him or
Sure.
her, or to the brand. To Redwood Classics, sustainability is in twofold. The environmental impact, that's table stake. The fact that we're made in Canada, we use local suppliers, we're minimizing the carbon footprint. To give you an example, one container of finished goods, one container of yarn, I should say, is equivalent to about 2 to 3 containers of finished goods. Imagine just the
Oh,
carbon
wow.
footprint of that,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So we're able to do that, and we're minimizing the carbon footprint. And then as of late, we've also introduced, as you're wearing our SKU Camp t-shirt, is our sustainable all over print. Table stakes of environmental impact, but then also a big part, and I think we need to talk about more, especially in our industry, is about diversity. And
Absolutely.
when I speak of diversity, I don't mean diversity and inclusion from a internal standpoint within an organization, but looking within your supply chain. And supplier diversity is a really big thing for us. We're looking at our socioeconomic impact from 40 people to, over 100. We're about 110 right now, actually 113 to be exact, because we just did our holiday gift giving internal thing. So I know. So to 113, we're really looking at the diversity of our staff, but also what we can, the socioeconomic impact of being made in Canada.
No, it's incredibly admirable, and I love how it's becoming more at the forefront of the conversations that have been going on between distributors and suppliers. Both the environmental aspect of it, the diversity aspect of it. Just some really
Mhm.
interesting conversations going on, and love that that's kind of started bubbling to the top of a lot of our distributors and even their customers asking for products that come from suppliers that have these, this
Sort of,
baseline of
yeah.
standards. So really cool to see.
So this particular pillow, as an example, is something that we upcycled. This is the original part of an umbrella that was already branded, and they
Oh,
had over
wow.
inventory.
Fascinating.
They had
That's
over
great.
inventory, and a distributor partner told us that, and they had this issue. And I said, well, why don't you let us take a jab at it? And so we ended up saving, hundreds of already branded umbrellas from landfill. And we were also protecting their brand, right? So
Right.
we basically deconstructed the umbrella, maintained the integrity of their logo, and then gave it a brand new life, right?
That's
And we
great.
actually won
Yeah.
multiple environmental awards for this. Um, and we introduced this a few years ago. And now our industry is talking about it. So
It's
that's,
yes. I
yeah.
would say, in terms of, and this applies on the technology side as well, in terms of the sustainability, the diversity, all of that, and in terms of the technology, our industry has always been more of a follower than a leader. And I like
Yeah.
that some people are starting to see our industry as a leader. I mean, this year was a great example. During COVID, we became a leader in providing PPE to people that
Yes.
couldn't get it otherwise. So
Yes.
anyway, I love the stuff you're doing. I could listen to your stories all day. I know Kate and our marketing team is going to be like, Schultz, just wrap this up. These are supposed to be short and sweet, but going back for a quick second to the diversity and the certifications and things that you were talking about, we
Mhm.
actually launched just this week some new fields in commonsku for our suppliers to be able to list this type of information. We've never had
Yes.
it before, so we're super excited that now you guys can list your certifications. You can list the promo cares-esque type of programs that you're
Yeah.
involved in, and our distributors now have an easier way to find those.
That's
And
amazing.
in addition to that, with our integration with Sage and such, you can search for products that meet those criteria as well. So things are moving in that right direction in terms of bringing those efforts and the technology together to allow our distributors to more easily find products like yours for customers that are asking for that. So
That's
super cool
amazing.
stuff. Well, Kathy, I really appreciate you being here today, and I would say answering my questions, but I didn't ask you too many questions. But I think everybody got just such a fantastic background on where you guys came from and what you do and what makes you guys unique among the apparel side of the industry on the promo side and such. So thanks
Oh,
for everything you guys do for commonsku and our community and the world, from that matter.
oh, you're too kind. Thank you so much, David, for having me.